You put in the hours, you cover the weekend shifts, and you build the client relationships. Then you watch a charismatic new hire walk right into your boss's office and walk out with the promotion you spent years earning. At this particular marketing agency, our narrator had spent 5 years working her way up. She skipped the birthday cake for coworkers she didn't like, hosted the late-night client dinners, and by year 4 was unofficially running the entire account team. Then came Danielle. In the actual workflow, the narrator builds strategies from scratch. In the perceived workflow, Danielle intercepts those campaigns, hand-delivering them to the director as her own. The result? The senior tile, corner office, and parking spot transferred directly to Danielle. This creates a suffocating psychological trap. Complaining to HR makes the victim look bitter and uncooperative. Quitting simply hands Danielle a total victory while abandoning 5 years of professional equity. Escaping a trap like this requires a strategy that goes against every natural instinct. You don't fight, you don't argue, you smile, you say congratulations, and you start playing a very long, very quiet game of observation. Over the next year, a stark paradox defined the account team. Danielle excelled at managing management, keeping the director perfectly happy, but she lacked the ability to execute the actual work without constant guidance from the person she stepped over. The evidence of this incompetence piled up quickly. At 11 p.m., frantic texts would roll in asking how to structure a basic pitch deck. An hour before client calls, Slack messages would arrive begging for strategy points. The narrator kept answering these late-night pleas. She wasn't acting out of kindness. She was meticulously collecting a paper trail. Every bailed-out presentation and every ghost-written strategy document served as proof of an invisible subsidy keeping Danielle's career afloat. 18 months into this arrangement, the agency's biggest client started growing cold. Danielle had officially been handling the account solo for over a year, but the narrator was still ghostwriting half the strategy. It became clear that Danielle didn't need a transition period. She needed an indefinite, unacknowledged lifeline to survive in the role. Active sabotage in the workplace leaves fingerprints and risks termination. However, strategically withdrawing your invisible labor, simply stepping back and allowing the natural consequences of incompetence to unfold, is completely untraceable. The narrator initiated a tactic of the slow fade. There were no dramatic speeches or confrontations. Instead, she utilized the routine of plausible deniability. "So sorry, swamped today. Can we sync tomorrow instead?" 3 months after the safety net vanished, the client forced the issue. They demanded a comprehensive live strategy refresh, giving the team a strict 2-week deadline to prepare. Danielle panicked, asking the narrator for help 4 separate times. Each time she was met with a polite refusal. The narrator was legitimately busy cleaning up the smaller accounts Danielle had neglected, making her own value highly visible to the director in the process. The day of the presentation arrived. Danielle stood alone at the head of the boardroom table, armed with a remarkably thin strategy deck. It was the work of someone who had coasted on another person's thinking for 2 years and suddenly had to generate their own. The client asked a specific follow-up question regarding audience segmentation. Danielle froze. She had no answer. She looked across the room, silently begging the narrator for a rescue. The narrator replied, "That's a great question. I think that's actually outside my current scope on this account, but I'm sure Danielle has that covered." That polite refusal publicly exposed Danielle's reliance on others. The client lost confidence that week. That single hesitation confirmed a long-term pattern of inadequacy they had been quietly noticing for months. Management recognized the error immediately. Within a month, the director pulled the narrator aside for a private conversation, asking if she would be willing to take back a leadership role on the account. This time, the narrator set non-negotiable terms. "On this corporate balance sheet, we track the transaction." She demanded the senior director title, backdated pay raise, and corner office. Danielle wasn't fired. Instead, as this org chart shows, she was permanently neutralized, relegated to smaller accounts, while the narrator regained her assets. The power dynamic reset entirely. Now, whenever Danielle reaches off for help on her smaller accounts, the narrator can genuinely reply with the same phrase used against her. "So sorry, swamped today." Competence cannot be faked on an infinite timeline. When someone takes credit for your expertise, the most effective response is rarely anger. It is simply stepping aside and letting them do the job they claimed they could do.